Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into, well, one of the biggest transformations humanity's ever seen, really, the shift to an urban world. It's all about the age of cities.
It really is. And the speed is just astonishing when you actually look at the timeline. Most people living in cities, that's super recent, mainly the last 50 years, and it really kicked into high gear after 1970.
Yeah, our sources really zeroed in on that turning point. They talk about three main things driving this urban world.
Yeah.
The globalization of, economies and social life, the explosive physical growth of cities themselves, and, this is key, the global adoption of urban lifestyles.
And the scale, I mean, it's almost hard to picture. You've got over 2.6 billion people packed into urban areas. There's this great thought experiment we came across.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you took everyone living in cities globally and put them together at the density of, say, a big East Asian city like 7,600 people per square kilometer,
Okay.
the entire urban population of Earth would fit into less than 1% of the world's land.
Less than 1%.
Mm-hmm. An area roughly the size of Germany.
Wow. So basically Germany holding everyone who shapes the global economy, culture, politics. That just screams concentration of people, of resources, of strain, I guess.
Exactly. Now, before we dig into the structure, the sort of hierarchies controlling all this, we should probably clarify two terms for you, the listener. Our sources talk about urban growth and urbanization. They sound similar, but they're different.
Right. Urban growth is just
Yeah.
more people in cities, the raw numbers going up, like China adding, what was it, 226 million urban dwellers in just 10 years? That's massive growth.
Huge numbers. But urbanization is about the proportion, the percentage of a country's total population living in urban areas. And that's the bigger societal shift. The sources we looked at, tracking things up to the early 2000s, were projecting that globally we're heading towards maybe 75% urban by 2010. That's the fundamental change we're unpacking today.
Okay, got it. So let's unpack that structure. If you were just guessing, you'd probably think rich country equals very urban, poor country equals mostly rural. But is it actually that simple? Let's look at the data.
Well, that's where it gets interesting. The global picture is actually really uneven. When the analysts crunched the numbers, the link between a country's wealth, like GNP per capita, and how urbanized it is, it was surprisingly weak. A correlation of only about 0.59.
Wait, just 0.59? Seriously, I'd have thought money and city growth would be much, much tighter than that. So what is driving how fast a country urbanizes then?
Things like history, colonial past, even just where a country is geographically seems to matter a lot more than just current wealth. You see this really clearly in the developing world. Take Namibia.
Okay.
Low GNP per capita, right. But according to these records, it was 70% urban. Now compare that to Peru, also low GNP, but only 27% urban. So that simple rich equals urban idea just doesn't hold up across the board.
Huh. And this unevenness, it also affects how people are spread out within a country, right? This gets us to urban hierarchies. Geographers have these two main patterns they talk about.
That's right. The first one is called the rank size distribution, sometimes log normal. You tend to see this in mature, well-connected economies. Basically, the second biggest city is roughly half the size of the biggest, the third biggest is about a third the size, and so on down the line.
So it's just wealth and opportunity are kind of spread out.
Yeah, more distributed across the country. But then you have the complete opposite, primate distribution.
Primate, like one dominant city.
Exactly. One city just completely overshadows everything else. It's the magnet for population, power, money. In places like Guinea, Mauritania, Burundi, you had over 80% of the entire urban population living in that single largest city.
80%.
That.
That concentration is immense. It's not just a big city. It's like the only city that matters in some ways.
Signals a real imbalance, doesn't it? Infrastructure, politics. Absolutely. And it can make the whole country vulnerable, If something hits that one major city, an economic downturn, a natural disaster, the impact is disproportionately huge.
Makes sense. Now, while those primate cities are striking, we often hear most about the real giants, the megacities. And yeah, these huge urban areas, like 8 million people or more, they definitely exploded in the late 20th century.
They did. The numbers went from just 10 globally in 1970 to 20 by 1990. And the projections were for maybe 28 by the year 2000, with most of the new ones in the developing world. You heard about Mexico City hitting 20 million, Tokyo reaching 18 million. Those were big headlines.
Right. But is that the whole story? Are we only living in megacities now?
But here's the counterintuitive part. Despite all the focus on megacities, most of the world's urban population, particularly in the developing world back then, didn't live in them. Something like two-thirds, 66% of the third world's urban population were still in small or medium-sized places, cities under 1 million people.
So yes, we have these giants. But the reality for most urban dwellers was, and maybe still is, life in a more moderately sized city or town.
Exactly. It's a world with megacities, but it's also fundamentally a world of millions of smaller urban centers.
Okay, so we've got the distribution of size. But size isn't everything you said earlier. This huge global network needs, well, it needs control towers, right?
You got it.
Command centers. Let's talk about the cities that actually run the show.
Yes, let's. These are what we call world cities. And their importance isn't really about how many people live there. It's about their economic function, their global influence. They are effectively the command and control hubs for global capitalism.
The nerve centers. And we're talking primarily about the big three, right? New York, London, and Tokyo.
That's them. They just have this critical mass of corporate headquarters, major banks, the specialized legal and accounting firms, all the services that manage the global flow of capital and information.
And they each have their own flavor, their own specialty.
They do, reflecting their own histories and national economies. New York, for instance, is often seen as the main hub for global corporate power. Makes sense, given the size and influence of the U.S. economy.
Okay, corporate HQ in New York. What about London?
London's fascinating. It's the top supplier of financial and producer services. Even though the UK economy itself isn't the biggest, London dominates international banking, foreign exchange. The data we saw showed its stock exchange listed 4 times as many overseas companies as its main competitors.
4 times.
Yeah,
So it's really punching above its weight internationally in finance.
massively. And then you have Tokyo. It sort of joined the club a bit later, its status really boosted by the incredible success of the Japanese economy, especially in the latter 20th century. Its distinction was the sheer concentration of bank assets. Back in 1994, something like 7 of the world's 15 largest banks were Japanese, headquartered there.
So New York for corporate decisions, London for the money flows, Tokyo built on industrial and banking might. Are they rivals, or is it more like a network, covering different bases, different time zones?
It's definitely a network, deeply interdependent. They need constant, instant communication, and that's where technology becomes crucial. Fiber optic cables, digital networks, they allow information to zip around the globe instantly, cheaply. It basically collapses distance and time, which you absolutely need for things like 24-hour financial trading.
And London has a special advantage there, doesn't it, geographically?
It really does. It sits perfectly in the time zones. It can trade with Asia as its markets close, and then it's open as the New York markets are getting going. That unique position, combined with top-tier tech, lets it act as a bridge across the global trading day.
And this tech advantage, it doesn't spread evenly, does it?
No, that's a key point. The latest, fastest communication technologies tend to diffuse hierarchically, meaning the world cities get them first. They're always a step, or several steps, ahead of smaller cities down the chain.
Which just reinforces their dominance, keeps them in control.
Exactly. It locks in their command function over the rest of the urban system.
Okay, so that's the structure of the hierarchy, the control points. But living in this urban world also means a huge shift in how people live, right? The social side, what sociologists call urbanism.
Yeah, and one thing you see immediately is convergence. Cities are starting to look more alike. Walk around downtown Seoul or São Paulo, Chicago. You see the high-rises, the adjustments needed for cars everywhere.
Visually similar.
Okay.
And economically, too, right? With global brands.
Absolutely. McDonald's, Levi's, Coke, you can find them pretty much anywhere. It creates a sort of shared baseline of consumer experience, regardless of location.
And mass media plays a huge role in this.
A massive role. Think about TV shows, international sports stars. They create shared knowledge, shared attitudes, shared expectations across the globe. It makes the experience of urban living feel less tied to one specific place.
Now, this idea of city life-changing people, there's been a big debate among sociologists, hasn't there, about how cities actually affect us.
Oh, yes. For a long time, the classic view was Wirth's determinism. Louis Wirth argued that the sheer size, density, and diversity of cities inevitably breaks down traditional social ties, leads to people feeling isolated, anonymous, detached.
The lonely crowd idea.
Sort of, yeah. But then others push back with compositionalism. They said, hold on, lifestyles aren't determined by where you live, but by who you are, your social class, your ethnicity, your stage in life. These social groups, they argued, are pretty resistant to the urban environment itself.
So location doesn't matter much in that view.
Right. But then came a kind of synthesis, which many find more convincing. Fisher's subculture theory.
Okay, what did Fisher argue?
Fisher had this really insightful idea. He said large cities don't destroy social groups, they actually make them stronger
Stronger. How?
by allowing them to reach what he called critical mass. Think about a niche interest group, maybe amateur dramatists or a specific religious minority, or people who just immigrated from a particular place.
Mm.
In a small town, there might only be a few such people, too few to form a real community.
But in a big city.
In a big city, they can find enough like-minded people to form a viable, visible subculture. The city provides the numbers needed for these specialized groups to flourish. So paradoxically, the big anonymous city actually fosters more intense community life just within specific subcultures.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, this global flow of culture, the TV shows, the brands we mentioned, brings up the old question of cultural imperialism, doesn't it? Is Western culture just washing over everything, killing local traditions?
That was the fear, certainly, but the sources we looked at suggest a more complex reality leaning towards cultural pluralism. The global media market isn't just a one-way street from the West anymore.
You mean producers emerging elsewhere?
Exactly. Think about TV Globo in Brazil exporting its telenovelas to over 100 countries. Or Bollywood, the Indian film industry, it's the most productive in the world.
So local content is fighting back.
It's strong, and often people prefer locally made media. It suggests we're not heading for one bland, uniform global culture, but maybe more of a hybrid, plural, global urban society, where international influences get mixed and remade locally.
Interesting. Okay, we've covered structure, command, culture. But there's a huge challenge looming over all of this, sustainability. Can the planet actually support this massively concentrated, resource-hungry urban system?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And there are serious doubts. Analysts often use this powerful metaphor, the parasitic city.
Parasitic, why?
Because cities, especially big ones, rely almost totally on outside areas for everything essential. Air, water, energy, food. They don't produce their own food. They don't really clean water for reuse. They're these massive engines of consumption, taking resources in and pumping waste out. It's a very linear, non-circular system.
Now, the consumption levels are just off the charts, especially in developed cities.
Startlingly so. The developed world, highly urbanized, maybe 25% of the global population, yet responsible for something like 70% of world energy use and 75% of metals consumption.
70% of energy.
And there's this one comparison in our source material that it floors you. The Sears Tower in Chicago, just one building, uses more energy in a single day than an average American city of 150,000 people.
One building versus a whole city.
Or, get this, more than an Indian city of over 1 million inhabitants.
Wow. That single data point really drives home how the way we build and live in cities, especially in the developed world, has colossal environmental implications. The structure of capitalism, where the power is concentrated, it dictates this consumption.
Absolutely. And you see specific environmental problems everywhere. In developing cities, it might be extreme air pollution. Shanghai's core historically had sulfur dioxide levels more than double the recommended limits. Santiago, Chile, trapped by mountains, often has terrible air quality.
And the types of problems differ too, right? Developed versus developing world.
Yeah, that's an important contrast. Developed cities often struggle with the consequences of sprawl, low-density suburbs, long commutes, high energy use per person, just getting around. It's inefficient.
Whereas in many developing cities,
the problems are more immediate, more about basic survival. Huge numbers of people lacking safe sanitation, clean water, leading directly to major health crises. That's often the deadliest cost of rapid, unplanned urbanization.
people have tried to tackle this globally, haven't they? Like the Earth Summit in Rio?
Yes, back in 1992. That produced Agenda 21, a framework meant to promote sustainable development in settlements.
But how successful was it, really?
Well, the big criticism is that it failed to achieve the necessary global bargain. The idea was that developed countries would need to significantly curb their high consumption lifestyles.
In exchange for developing countries agreeing to limit how they exploited their own natural resources as they grew.
Exactly. That fundamental trade-off, that compromise needed for genuine global sustainability. It never really happened. The political will wasn't there on either side, arguably.
So wrapping this all up, this deep dive shows us an urban world that's, what? Defined by its incredible scale, its rapid growth, especially on the periphery, but with economic and decision-making power still incredibly focused in just a few key world cities.
It's a system full of paradoxes, isn't it? It works in the sense that it functions day to day, but it seems fundamentally unbalanced, maybe unjust in how resources are distributed. And clearly, it's fragile when you look at the environmental cost and resource limits.
Yeah, that concentration of power in places like New York, London, Tokyo, it seems to set the template for growth and consumption everywhere else.
Which leads us to a final, maybe unsettling thought for you to mull over. Given that this whole urban world emerged hand in hand with global capitalism, and given that we failed to strike that global bargain on sustainability, what happens next?
Does the future depend on those few powerful world cities somehow deciding to change course to enforce a more sustainable model from the top down?
Or is the sheer momentum of growth in the megacities of the developing world now just an unstoppable force? Has it taken on a life of its own, charting a course that might be unsustainable regardless of what happens in the old centers of power? That's the question we're left with.